Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Coffeepreneur. Today is your episode 77. When I constantly do episodes, I kind of remember what episode I'm on now, which is a good thing. Anyway, so let's get started. I know this topic has been very popular recently, and you probably seen or you probably watched a lot of videos about it, but I still kind of want to talk about uh, this is from my own perspective. Quiet quitting, and I know you're very familiar with it. It is very popular here. However, at my work place, I don't really see people talk about that a lot, but I do see people actually take actions on quiet quitting. So my job is a little bit different from other 9 to 5 jobs. So I start teaching at 9:15, finish class at 2:45. If you look around at exactly 2:45, all the teachers are already gone. There's no one who stay at home or stay at school. I do because I'm still relatively new, so I kind of wanted to get a lot of things done at work, so I don't have to continue when I get home. Then I was thinking about quiet quitting. I think that kind of thing has been at my school or at the school board for a long time. People, once you have permanent position, people don't really put a lot of effort into their work anymore. Just, you do what you can and you do what you pay for. Then I was thinking, well, if you watch my last video, I was talking about my anxiety or my feeling nervous about not learning too much. Feel like I'm not going anywhere further. That's kind of thing I'm experiencing now. Is so I kind of feel like I have shifted from I want to work really hard to I just only want to work as much as not possible. No, I just want to work. Yeah, okay. Then I get work done. Then I'm happy when I get home, so I don't have to worry about too much. So I totally felt the shift. And isn't that quiet quitting or not? I'm not really sure, but I kind of feel like sometimes you just need to give yourself a break in how you are going to balance your work and life. That is a very important question to answer. But but I think quiet quitting gave us an excuse to try to balance our work and life. That's why I really want to talk about it. Sometimes quiet quitting is not like you're giving up on yourself. It's more like you're trying to figure out, is there something more important to do in your life other than your work? Also, quiet quitting is not about, I don't care about anything anymore. Sometimes some people might think, well, you know what? It's just a job. I get paid for that. So I do what I can. That's it. But then I'm thinking, if that is your goal, what about your self development? Right? Those kind of things that you have to think about. So if you hear noises, there's construction just outside of the house. I apologize first. Anyway, so let's talk about the first thing, that how you are going to balance your work life and your personal life using quiet quitting. I used to work really hard because I want to prove a point that I'm capable and I'm really awesome. I think when I worked at so when I was at my previous job, I used to work really like probably other than teaching, I probably worked average 3 hours a day to find good materials and to find how to make him more interactive, more fun for my students, things like that. But then I realized that everything I did uh, didn't matter to my students. They didn't really care. Uh, Most of the students at that school didn't really want to learn, so they were here for the benefits, right? So as long as they're attending, then there's a government benefits for them for their kids, and that made me very sad. And then I was like, why am I doing that? But I do realize the actual work I did made me this far. So then I constantly felt stressed about myself. I felt like I didn't do a good job. My students didn't like me, and I put all the effort there, and my bosses didn't really care. When your effort, when your talent, and when your skills are not acknowledged by your bosses or your colleagues or even your clients, the students, you just feel like I'm useless. well, at least I feel the same that way. I felt like everything I did went to nothing, you know. Why am I doing that? And I constantly feel stressed at home and I couldn't focus on things. And I started to uh, hate people. I started to hate socializing. I mean, I'm still hating that. But more it's about like when I was by myself, I definitely felt very depressed. And I think I talked about this a while ago in one of those episodes. I started to cry in the middle of the field with Bob, like really out of the blue for no reason. I was just crying, and I knew, wow, I may order too much, and I felt like my brain had never shut down and never stopped thinking, never stopped spinning after work. And why am I doing that? I don't even get paid for the actual work I did. Then then I start to, well, if I knew quiet quitting back then, I probably would really take action on that one. What do you think? You think that's right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I probably would rather spend more time with Bob and we will be very happy. Then switching to this job, of course, I want to prove a point that I'm really good. And I was constantly involved in a lot of activities, trying to be very participating, and also trying to show my bosses that I'm really capable, hire me, and hard work paid off. Of course, then I said this many times because I'm very proud of myself. I got this permanent position. That's when I started to chant, and I feel like so I'm still in that kind of hardworking Chinese mode. You know, you work hard. You want to show people that you are really good. It's worth your time, and they made a right decision about hiring you or something like that. But then I started to fade away. I feel like uh, I can do. I can optimize my ability to make my students really enjoy my class, but do I really have to spend extra time on planning things that much that sometimes I may not really use it, right? And also other things like trying to be more proactive, trying to be more initiative. Is that necessary? What would that get you? Oh, no, let's put it that way. Where would that get you? Uh, well, because I'm getting older, so when I think about things, I'm thinking about how to maximum the resources, how to maximum the results with a decent amount of effort. So for me, if I work really hard and that wouldn't get me too far, or the results won't pay off how much I worked, then I probably think that that's not a good deal. And then why am I doing that? I may switch to a different uh, methods tool or switch to a different goal to continue my journey. So that is something I have been thinking about quiet quitting. For a lot of young people, they have 9 to 5 jobs or some of them even work overtime, but then they're thinking, do I have to do that? Would that take me anywhere? If not, why do you do it? Why can't you spend some time on something more important? That actually reminded me of a talk with my previous ex-colleague. We were talking together, really like him. So we're chatting about how much extra time he spent at work. So we're working at for different schools now. So he said the amount of time he spent on extra stuff that he's not getting paid for, he could use that to learn a language, to learn a new skill, to get a certificate, to become someone professional. And so why am I spending that much time on those kind of things? And then once he figured that out, switch. He started to switch to a different mode. That right at 3 o'clock, he's saying that well after three I'm not getting paid for whatever I do after three. Then I'm going to use that time to study I think he's studying like a real estate broker's thing. He's trying to get a license to become that. He really loves those kind of things. And you know what? It's been a year and he got his license. And now, after his free time, or even during a summer vacation or winter holiday, he can take on a totally different journey to make extra money because now he's a real estate agent. I'm like, wow, that is really smart. So you might be quite quitting certain kind of things at work, but you're not quite quitting your life. You can still take on something else and then be master of it, right? I was like, that really inspired me. And then that's when I start to think about maybe I should don't if that's not to your personality, don't learn from me. Maybe I should stop paying too much attention to some of the details that are definitely not necessary, but use that amount of effort and time to learn something else. I always want to learn Spanish because most of my students are Spanish, so I want to show off. I always to want I always want to learn a new language, want to do something different about languages. Well, if I'm thinking from the day one till now, after I didn't have to worry about my job, the amount of time I spend toward the work might be used to learn a new language. And if I did so, I probably could have spoken a relatively fluent language right now, but apparently did not. And then I remember a while ago, during summertime, I used the extra time to study writing courses, and I really appreciate that and learned that well. But that courses was learned to help myself with the writing course at my university job, right? I really benefit that. So with the job and the extra course, I definitely felt like my writing skills have gone to another level. That is not quiet quitting. While I nobody paid me to do the course, but I benefit from it, and that is my permanent skills that have nobody can take away from me. So that's why I was thinking, quiet quitting, yeah. So you can balance out what you want to do between the work and something else. If you have some habits you want to, or you have hobbies you really want to master them, then maybe you can spend that kind of time on those kind of hobbies instead of working really hard, right? Nobody pays you for that. Another thing about quiet quitting, okay. Another thing about quiet quitting is you have to think about your self development in the future. If you're doing this job at this company and you're pursuing a promotion or future development in the same industry, there's a certain amount of work you have to do even though you're not getting paid for it. Then quiet quitting might not be a good choice for you. So it is okay. It is a trendy, it is popular. However, you really have to think about yourself. People are different, right? You have different personalities, different styles of handling things. You have to think about even your personal goals. What do you want? Back to the one I was talking about at work. The amount of actual work I spent at the teaching job uh, got me this far, got me this permanent position because I showed them I'm worth it, right? So if that is your goal, then there's a certain amount of work you have to do, uh, and you can't really think about quiet quitting. So think about what you want. If you are, and I've got questions like, oh, my major is English. What am I going to do in the future? Uh, and I always suggest, and some of the people that I know here, they approach me and they ask, how can I get a job here? And I always said, well, start volunteer somewhere else. I know it's a free work and then it's actual work you need to do. But then, of course, most of them didn't want to do that. And they said, wow, I don't really have a good solution to it just because this is how I went through every single step to get this far. So for me, being volunteer at certain schools and then volunteer at associations, join conferences and networking and other things like presenting at a conference and things like that. They seem like irrelevant and they seem like a lot of work, but they're necessary because you're very active and other people can see it. And when you're talking about your self experience, things like that, not only you have that on your resume, but also your own, the way you talk, the way you articulate is totally different because of your experience. So people can definitely see that. And that's probably why I did really well at my interviews. I'm very proud of that. I'm still very happy. I ranked the number one during my last interview among all the people. But that's because I've been through a lot. I worked really hard. I know what I'm doing and I know what I want. So that actual amount of time and effort I put there uh, is worth it, right? So at that moment, I didn't think about quiet quitting because you have to think about how you're gonna. So a very common question is: picture yourself in 5 years. Where will you be in 5 years? Because during those 5 years, what are you gonna do? And then how can that much of work you've been doing during the 5 years get you that far, right? So that is something you really need to think about it. That's why when we talk about quiet quitting, I feel like you can't just think about the action. You also have to really plan well. What does that bring to you? Like what do you want? Does that make sense to your life? If it doesn't, just don't follow the trend because it's trendy, right? So I don't know why I was listening to the podcast and they were talking about the size of quiet quitting. I didn't really quite get it. I just started the topic is so general. They mentioned a lot of things. So for me, I feel this is how I think about quiet quitting. I mean, my friends thought that was a bad trend, but for me, I am again looking at that from different perspectives. So it can be bad, it can be good. It depends on how you use it. But that's just my opinion. So feel free to share your opinion on quiet quitting. What are you doing right now? Are you a student? Are you having a job, working really hard? Are you stressed? Are you thinking about quiet quitting as well? So feel free to share your thoughts. Anyway, I hope you like this episode, and I'll see you next one. Bye. How about this? Okay, yeah, good. That's good. I have baby talk. Every time I talk to Bob, and I switch to my baby talk voice. He said, "To shake." Oh my goodness. Do you like my podcast? You like my podcast? I shake. Oh. Yeah. So he's being very distracted. Okay. So for me, back to yeah, you kicked my microphone.